Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of my tutorial park. Now, in the last episode I showed you how to build a map, and in this episode I will show you how to make a nice looking park entrance. Now, here you can see the standard park entrance. What I usually do is I actually make one of these standard park entrances at the edge of the park, and then I make the actual entrance of the park somewhere inside of the map, and that's just because I like to have some nice space over here to work with, and this entrance is just purely functional. So what I will typically do is I go to the cheat menu, I open the tile inspector, I select this tile and select the entrance, and you press the little icon over here, and that's how you make the building here invisible. I do the same with the other side, and then I do the same with this part of the entrance as well. Now I cannot actually place a path here, so what I will then do is I go in the tile inspector, I select this piece of footpath, I copy it, and then I paste it here. And you always have to make sure that this footpath is above the entrance, or else the entrance actually stops working. So what we did now here is that the functional entrance of the park is actually invisible. We have a path here, so it doesn't look weird with a little gap in it. And over here then I can build the actual entrance of the park. At least something that will look like it would function as the actual entrance. By the way, something which I also recommend is to go in Tile Inspector, select this tile over here, and just hide these fences. We can do that by going on the surface here and then press Remove Park Fences. Alright, for the actual entrance of the park, there's a few things that I always make. Now I just remember for every park in the world the park entrance is done in a different way, so there's not really a way to go wrong with it. I think anything is possible. I've seen many different configurations, but there's typically a few things that you always see. First off, there's usually a place to buy tickets. Now you can have them in line with the path, or you can have them somewhere on the side. So for now I'll just place an ATM. I typically use ATMs as the ticket counters. And what you usually see a little bit further than the ticket counter is a place where guest tickets get checked by someone. There's usually some gates there. You can either scan your ticket in a machine, or someone will take a look at it. So I always like to put some entertainers, freeze them in place, and make them pretend to be the ones checking the tickets. Alright, I think we should go through a few of my RCT1 but beautiful parks and just take a look at how I did the entrances there. And you'll probably recognize these two things that I just mentioned. Okay, here we have my Forest Frontiers but beautiful park. Over here you can see that the guests enter the park. There's an invisible entrance somewhere over here. And over here is what looks like the actual entrance of the park. So over here the guests enter, there's a big plaza here. It's usually good to make it look spacious over here, because usually the entrance is one of the most crowded areas of the park, especially in the morning. So over here you can see some ticket counters. You can see 3 of them over here. And then over here we have the gate that says welcome, and you can see some security guards over here that have been frozen in place. And these guys check the guest tickets, or maybe at least it looks like that. Right over here we have dynamite dunes, but beautiful. Now here for the entrance I actually first made this gate, so guests walk into the entrance area over here. Made this fountain in the middle, and over here the ticket counters actually somewhere on the side. And then over here there's the gate where the guest tickets get checked. So yeah, a little bit different configuration. The ticket counters are not in the path, they're rather more to the side. Right here we have Leafy Lake, but beautiful. Yeah, sort of same configuration as what I did in Forest Frontiers. Here we have the ticket counters, actually they're in the front here. And then over here we have some security guards checking the guest tickets. Right here's Mel's World, but beautiful in the snowy park. Here guests actually enter a little plaza in what looks like some sort of little castle. To the side here, ticket counter. Then here's the gates where some snowmen have been frozen in place. Pun intended. To check the guest tickets. Yeah, I could show more of these parks, but I think you get the idea by now. Alright, now for our park, let's build an entrance somewhere over here. I'm going to keep some space next to this path on both sides, so in a future episode we can actually build a nice parking lot here. So I'm just going to make this path a little bit wider. I think I'm going to put a 3 wide path over here. I will not make it too long so it doesn't give any pathfinding issues. But yeah, I like to have my entrance area look a little bit spacious. I'm also just going to prepare the landscape here a little bit, make it a little bit more flat so it's easier to work with. Alright, the area has been flattened a bit and that should help me build the park entrance over here. So I'm just going to lay out the general shape of the entrance that I want. So I put it a little bit further so I have some more space over here. So I guess we'll want to have some ticket counters over here in some form. Yeah, I think I'll just go for a shape like this. So guests can walk straight on to the entrance, or they can use one of these paths, and there will be some ticket counters right here in the middle. But yeah, like I already said, every park does this in a different way. What you end up doing is really up to you. There's just a lot of things you can decide to do with a park entrance. Alright, I will now just build some ticket counters. You could build 4 of these ATMs, but I actually like to copy and paste them because they're not actually functional anyway. So I'll just go in the tile inspector, select this track piece, which is the cash machine, and I'll paste it over here. And I'll just click these paths to connect them. And now we have some ticket counters over here. Okay, I like to hide these away in little buildings. Now, it's easiest to build here if you disable clearance checks. That will allow you to build on the same tile as these stalls without any issues. And you will actually also be able to build over these paths here. Now, what will generally look nice for these ticket counters is to have some kind of doorway in front. You could, for example, go for one of these portcullis doors. Now the portcullis door is closed, so it looks a little bit weird. So I'll just select it with the tile inspector. If you hold Control in the tile inspector and click something, you will immediately select it, so that can be useful. Now, doors and portcullis doors have an animation frame property, so you can set this to a number and it will show a certain animation frame of the object. So if I move this higher and you look at the door, you can see it opens and it closes. So I'll just set it in an animation frame that it's up, and now I think this looks pretty fun. So now it looks like there's a little counter here in this alcove. Now, in the more recent builds of OpenRCT2, actually there are also some special colors. There's an invisible color and a void color. So if we go to the cheat menu, then we go to park, the park cheats, then here it says allow special color schemes. So if we do that, then now we can also select the invisible color here. So if you use that, Now you can see you don't even have to set the animation frame because the iron bars in this portfolio store have actually been made invisible when we did this. So you can now also use the normal doors if you want. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to make a simple building around these ticket counters. Probably also with a little roof over them to connect on this side here. And yeah, that will be the simple ticket counters for this park. Once again, you can do this any way you want. I'll just make a simple building around them here. By the way, if you want to make buildings that look nice, it's always a good idea to try and make some layers, or at least try to vary the materials that you use a little bit. For example, here for the bottom layer I used these low brick walls. Then on top I put some other walls. Here I'll put some other layers, and yeah, that's just the way to make your buildings look more interesting. I often see beginner players just make their buildings out of one material, for example this wall, and that will just make them look pretty boring. Alright, what can happen, and what you actually see happening here, is that yeah, I built a lot of stuff on the same tile as this ATM, and then later when I put this roof on top, you can see it actually starts glitching in the wrong way. You can now see stuff passing through this ATM. So in this case, yeah, there's no real hard line which I can give you here, or a hard advice, but usually it helps to play around a bit with the order of tiles on this object. For example, over here the roof is on top, and the roof actually caused this glitching to appear. So I'll just take the roof here and I'll just move it all the way down. So it looks like I didn't have to move it all the way down, but you can see the glitching here has disappeared. The same as happened on this tile. So I'll just select this roof, I'll control select it, and I'll just move it down a bit. That looks like this was already enough. But yeah, like I already said, there's no real hard advice. Sometimes you just have to try and see what works. If stuff starts glitching, and if the glitching really cannot be prevented, then it might be better to actually build on the outside of the tile. So what I mean with that is, if we have a ticket counter here, then you could also decide to build on the outside. So here you can see I placed the walls on the tile right next to it instead of building on the same tile. And that's usually a good way to prevent glitching from happening in the first place. Alright, now that we have our ticket counter, the guests still need a way to enter the park. And yeah, the guests definitely need to get their tickets checked before they get to ride any of our coasters. Now, for some parks, I believe one of these parks, for example, is Tivoli Friheden in Denmark. There the ticket counter is actually also the entrance gate. So I don't think it's a very common configuration, especially since it usually leads to large queues, but it does happen in some parks. And speaking of queues, something which you could do is, well, I have the invisible path selected here. Or actually, I'll make the path invisible in a different way. So here I select the footpath. I just press the eye icon, and now the path here is different, or it's invisible, I mean. Then, for example, you could take a mini golf track. Let's take a station piece and a normal track piece. Now for this normal track piece, I want to have a piece with railings. So then we need to lower the ground below it. So I'll just lower the ground here. Then I'll take this track piece over here. So I select it with the tile inspector, copy it, then we paste it over here. And we do the same with this track piece, copy it, paste it over here. And now it looks like there's some sort of queue in front of the ticket counter. So that's just a little something you can do if you want. Now, it may look a little bit silly because the guests also walked through it right now, but you could do that by making sure that the path only connects on these sides, so the guests can only walk through it this way. Alright, yeah, we want our guests to be able to walk through the park, to the park with their tickets. So, over here, I'm just going to make a little gate with some entertainers, which we will freeze over here to make it look like they check the tickets of the guests. Now, I typically just make some paths here, which are only connected in this direction. So guests will just have to walk through it like this. They cannot walk to the side here. So something like this. And here we can connect the paths again. Then we remove the walls, and then we have several paths here. Now, like I said, what I typically do here is I freeze some entertainers in place. Now, it can be quite tricky to actually get them to move to the correct place. I'll just make a little path over here. That will make things easier for me. You will see why in a second. Now, for the entertainers that I'm going to freeze here, I'll just hire 3 of them and I'll put them on this little path over here. Now, for this little trick here that I'm going to do, I will use the PIP Editor plugin. You can find it on OpenRCT2 plugins.com. I'll leave a link in the video description. Right, here we have the PIP Editor. And then we can select this little icon here. And then we can select one of these entertainers. And we can do several things here. We can freeze them in place with this button. We can also give them a different costume. I always like to just give them a guest costume. So let me quickly find it in the list. Alright, here we have the guest costume. So now we have an entertainer which actually looks like a guest. Alright, I want the guest to be facing this direction. So I'll just try to stop him in the right moment. You can also try to stop him while he's doing, for example, a waving animation. Then you'll have a waving guest frozen in place here. And now that he's frozen in place with these buttons, we can move him, for example, in the Y direction or the X direction. You can also move in the Z direction, but that's usually a little bit tricky to see in a proper way. Right, just going to put him here a little bit more to the front. And I'm going to do the same with these entertainers as well. Right, as you can see, I froze this guest in a waving animation, so he will be standing here waving at the guests, or doing some kind of salute. Okay, here I will once again do that little trick that I showed earlier using the mini golf track. Right, here you can see I made a little gate. Here you can see some of these entertainers which are here to check the guest tickets. Made a little roof above their heads, and some of these gates, or these these are just lines which the guests can walk through. So you could imagine there are turnstiles over here. Now there's lots of different ways you can spice up a park entrance. Something which you'll often see is welcome signs. And of course you can do the same for guests who are leaving the park. Alright, now there's many more things you could place around the entrance. For example, we could place some toilets if we wanted. And as usual, try to vary the materials a little bit. For example, here I just put some of these small walls around it, just so it wasn't all green. And I think that makes the building a little bit nicer to look at. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more decoration. I'm just going to add some trees and some plants around it, but nothing fancy. Alright, and there we have our simple park entrance with some ticket counters, some ticket checkers, some toilets, and yeah, you could decorate it with whatever you want. Some park info might also be nice. You would probably have that here on inside the park actually. So you guys could get a park map where you could have some guest services or yeah, there's just lots of things you could do to improve your entrance. But this is generally how I will typically make mine. Alright, that was it for this tutorial. I hope it's useful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I read all my comments and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. Alright, since we have three entertainers here, I will name them after some of my patrons. Alright, Sam Polkov, 73 and Lucas Laoda, thanks a lot for supporting my channel, and you guys will now be checking the tickets for all the guests that enter the tutorial park. Hope you enjoy your spot in the park. Alright, that was going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If it's useful for you, please consider hitting that like button, it would really help out my channel, and I'll see you again in the next video. See you later.